Suppose you have just completed this piece of work. You're now faced with the question of how is it to be finished? Do you want an opaque finish? Or a clear, natural finish? Should it be darker than it is? Will it be subjected to rough usage or excessive moisture? Or perhaps you want it to appear as a more expensive material. There are wood finishes that can meet any or several of these requirements. But if the finish is not selected wisely, all the hours that have gone into your project will have been wasted, and the potential beauty of a fine piece of craftsmanship will not have been realized. However, before any finish can be applied, you must have a smooth surface on which to work. To smooth a piece of wood, select an abrasive that is just finer than the coarsest scratches in the wood. Too fine an abrasive will do the job, but will take much longer. The abrasive you should use will take out the coarse scratches in the material and leave finer scratches. The next finer abrasive you use will take out the scratches left by the preceding abrasive and leave still finer scratches. And so on until the piece is as smooth as you desire. Dents may be raised by repeatedly applying a cloth soaked in hot water until the dent is raised slightly above the surrounding surface. Then it may be sanded down flush. If there are small cracks called checks or nail holes, they may be filled with stick shellac or wood repair that matches the color of the wood. Any such repairs must be sanded smooth. All sanding should be done with the grain. This process is easier if the sandpaper is wrapped around the block. Power sanders, such as this one, are fast and efficient, but rotary sanders tend to leave scratches across the grain. The corner where a flat surface meets an edge is called an eris. The razor edge should be taken off. However, avoid excessive or uneven rounding of the erises. Curved edges should be sanded only with a forward motion with the grain. After sanding, clean the work first with a brush and then with a clean cloth, and it is ready for the finish. The simplest finish to apply is paint. And if the wood is not attractive, or if you want to match other furniture or cover it for some other reason, paint is a very effective way of doing so, and paint can be obtained in any color. However, before painting, cover knots and pitchy places with shellac. Or if you're using a pitchy wood such as pine, it should be given a first coat of shellac. This seals the pitch in so it will not penetrate and discolor the paint. If you are using an open-grained wood, such as fir, you may want to apply a first coat of some commercial sealer. Whatever material is used, the first coat will act as a primer and will raise the grain, so you need to sand this coat with very fine sandpaper. The object should get 3 coats of paint, with each coat getting progressively thicker. Be sure that each coat is thoroughly dry before applying the next. If you like the grain pattern in your wood, there are a variety of finishes you can use to show yet protect this pattern. A piece can be bleached with one of the commercial bleaches on the market to lighten it. However, these are strong chemicals and should be handled with care. If you want the wood to be darker, or if you want a color change, there are wood stains. There are 3 types of stain in common use: oil stain, water stain, and spirit stain. Any of these will bring out the grain and enrich the color, or change the appearance of an inexpensive wood such as red gum to that of a more expensive wood such as walnut. Oil stains, while they do not penetrate the wood deeply and have a tendency to fade, are the easiest to apply, and they come in a variety of colors. Water stains penetrate the wood deeply. They are transparent, inexpensive, and give best result when used on hardwood. However, they raise the grain, which makes sanding necessary between coats. Spirit stains are pigments dissolved in alcohol. They penetrate more deeply than other stains, but will fade on long exposure to light. Spirit stains are most commonly used in refinishing old furniture, since they will penetrate a surface where some other finish has previously been used. All stains are applied in much the same way. Begin by testing the stain on a scrap of the same wood to be sure you will get the color you want. For best results, apply 2 coats to be run with all finishing materials. Since end grain takes stain more rapidly than side grain, it should be treated with a dilute solution of the stain, or, in the case of oil stain, with a coat of linseed oil. This prevents the end grain from becoming too dark. Stain the undersurfaces and lower parts first. Brush or wipe the stain on evenly and rapidly, going with the grain. Brush toward the edges to avoid runs. If runs occur, brush them out immediately. Excess water stain can be mopped up with a brush, but if the coat is smooth, it should be allowed to dry into the wood. If you are using oil stain, wipe the surface with a clean cloth before drying begins. This will help produce an even shade. If the color is still too light, apply another coat. Allow sufficient drying time before a filler or sealer is applied. In the case of oil stain, at least 24 hours. If you are using a close-grained wood, such as pine, sycamore, maple, or locust, it may be filled and sealed with a liquid agent such as shellac. If you are using an open-grained wood, such as mahogany, white oak, or walnut, a paste filler should be used. The paste filler should be colored to match the wood or stain and should be thoroughly stirred and thinned with benzene or a thinner recommended by the manufacturer to the consistency of a thick paste. The filler is brushed on with the grain and let stand until the gloss disappears. This requires from 4 to 10 minutes. The filler surface is now rubbed with the hand in a circular motion to pack the filler into the pores. The excess is then removed by rubbing across the grain with a rag. Streaks may then be removed by rubbing lightly with the grain. After you have attained the proper color and filled and sealed the wood with a coat of sealer or thin shellac, it is time to select your final finishing material. Shellac, varnish, and lacquer are the materials most commonly used. White shellac is best for general use. It sets quickly and becomes quite hard when dry. However, it becomes soft and turns white when exposed to excessive moisture or heat. Shellac can be applied over stained or natural wood. It is used as a liquid filler or sealing coat, or it can be used alone, building up a smooth, protective finish with several coats. After cleaning the object thoroughly, prepare the first coat of shellac, made up of 1 part alcohol and 1 part shellac. Lay the shellac on in narrow strips with a good quality varnish brush about 1.5 inches wide. Use long, fast, even strokes working toward the irises. If any spots seem to have been missed, leave them to be covered by the next coat. After at least 8 hours drying, rub the project down lightly with very fine sandpaper and steel wool. Use a small piece held lightly with the fingertips and work only a small area at a time. Clean the project thoroughly and apply the second and third coats in the same manner as the first, using progressively thicker shellac. For a fine finish, use a felt pad and rub the final coat with pumice stone and rubbing oil. And then with rotten stone and rubbing oil, always rubbing with the grain. Lacquer dries quickly and produces a hard surface and a fine finish that is not affected by changes in temperature. It is comparable to good spar varnish when exposed to moisture. In most cases, it is wise to apply 1 or 2 coats of lacquer sealer before lacquer is applied, because the ingredients in some lacquers may dissolve shellac, paint, and similar materials used as undercoats. Lacquer may be obtained clear or in a variety of colors. Lacquer may be either sprayed or brushed on. However, spraying type lacquer is not the same as brushing type lacquer, and the two should not be interchanged. Be sure you have the correct one. Brushing type lacquer should be applied over a smooth coat of lacquer sealer with a good quality camel's hair or fitch hair brush. Flow on the brushing type lacquer with the brush and do not brush over the same place more than. Lacquer must be applied as rapidly as possible and the brush strokes finished out to the irises. After 3 or 4 hours for drying, sand the rough spots lightly with very fine sandpaper, and you're ready for the second coat. 2 coats are usually sufficient when applied over a surface that has been sealed. Sand the final coat lightly with very fine waterproof sandpaper and rubbing oil. For a smooth velvet finish, rub and polish the final coat with rotten stone and oil. Flat varnish dries in about 4 hours. It acts as a preservative and retains the beauty of natural wood. It produces a soft, dull finish without rubbing and is used on interior woodwork and furniture. In applying varnish, great pains must be taken to avoid dust. The brush must be perfectly clean. Buy small cans of varnish and use a new one for each operation if possible, as the scum will cause a rough surface. Do not apply varnish in the shop, but find a more dust-free room, and never lay the brush down anywhere during the operation. Allow 24 hours for drying and sand with a small piece of very fine sandpaper. Do not do this sanding in the finishing room. Apply the second and third coats as you did the first, sanding between each coat. Use a new can for the last coat and a new brush if possible. Rub-on finishes are relatively new. They can be applied over natural or stained wood. They are fast drying and have an oil or wax base. The rub-on finish must be applied on a clean surface. But unlike resin-based finishes, while this finish is wet, it is relatively free from the ill effects of dust. This dust-free quality makes it possible to rub it on in a busy shop and still get a fine finish. And finally, to add polish and protection to any project, apply a coat or 2 of paste wax. In brief, then, be sure that your project is ready before you apply any finish. Decide what you want in colors and textures, and experiment to be sure that you can produce them. For safety's sake, be sure to put all oily rags in a closed metal container. Take pains with every step of the finishing process so you know that everything will be just the way you want it. Wood finishing is difficult, but if you handle these finishing materials in a skilled manner, they will work for you and the resulting product will be worthy of a true craftsman.